Play at Novibet.
Hello and welcome back to the IrishRacing.com podcast, brought to you in association with Novibet, where today we're going to be going over some of the weekend's action, covering what has been, gone, and what is also coming up ahead as well. Some of the big talking points from the world of both Irish and British horse racing. Joining me as ever is Johnny Ward and Emma Nagle. So Johnny, just start with you. How have you been this week?
Yeah, good, Joe. Good to see. I suppose going into the winter, good to see a 2-year performance at Newmarket. That I think reminds us of why we got into racing, really, where you have all this kind of hype built on the performance of a 2-year, but more so what he might achieve next season in City of Troy, which we'll talk about, and obviously the comparisons to Frankel from Connections and some of the quite remarkable comments from Aidan O'Brien afterwards. Were it was a pretty exciting weekend, and this horse is extremely exciting. So yeah, I'm just getting ready for racing at Goran today. It'll be a little bit quieter here, but yeah, it's been a fun weekend of racing.
Yeah, and obviously, we're going to touch on the weekend, but also the jumps are back. So, Emma, any standout performances from Punchestown in the week?
I suppose Minella Endo is the standout. I really enjoyed watching it now, to be honest. I thought coming into the race that I have this kind of idea in my head that Minella Endo is this horse who always needs a run and he's very slow coming back. But I think his record first time out probably proves me fairly wrong on that. And he was very, very good. Went out in front and he just really kind of showed the enthusiasm. You maybe might have been questioning after the Gold Cup run whether he was still kind of in love with it. But I think, just the kind of ears pricked the whole way, going at every fence. It was brilliant to watch. And look, no matter what he does for the rest of the year, I think it was a brilliant performance. I really enjoyed that during the week. But kind of, I suppose, in between now, well, the flat next weekend is probably really in the Breeders' Cup. But yeah, point to point and the National Hunt is really getting going again. I was at Sam Curling's on Saturday. And then going from there, seeing all the trio point-to-pointers kind of getting ready for the season, and then you're going to watch City of Troy. It's kind of right in the middle at the moment, but yeah, it's kind of an exciting time of the year, right?
Oh, I see. Yeah, lots going on, isn't there? I mean, I myself was at John Joe O'Neill's as well, so we've got a stable tour from his yard, also with Sam Cullen as well. So plenty to come here on IrishRacing.com, so stay tuned for that. But Johnny, as well, I just want to get a quick word on Frankie Dettori. U-turn as well on his retirement. What did you make of it?
Well, like he's how would you say, to borrow a phrase, I remember one time a colleague of mine, a young colleague, he was writing about a Gaelic Games match in a National League on a Saturday night, and there was nothing much happening, but he said Kerry were well on top and Tyrone were hanging on in there. They were proving harder to kill off than Keith Richards, and Frankie is proving pretty hard to retire. This has just gone on and on and on. Like, we're going to get another 3 years of this now. Like, I mean, poor old Pat Healy trying to bring him to Listowel, and they couldn't get him over, but sure, it'll be all right, Pat. You might have a few more years to bring him over. On one level, like, he's riding exceptionally well, but on the other level, it's like, Frankie, if you're giving us a year-long procession, and now it could be whoever knows how long more, I kind of rolling my eyes up to heaven a bit. But I thought the whole. Like, I used to keep bookending these stories by saying, it's the last time Frankie Dettori rides a Royal Ascot, or the last time he rides this, the last time he rides that. I don't know anything anymore.
Ever as well, any take from you?
Yeah, I think you have to say kind of fair play to Vincent. He's been calling this on this podcast for months that Frankie was going to go and ride in America. And to be honest, I thought that he would just bow out, because, like Johnny mentioned, we've been getting this kind of year-long kind of media obsession with Frankie retiring. And now, I mean, I think he's like 1 to 10 and to ride at Royal Ascot next year. Like, he'll definitely be back. I'm a bit disappointed in it, to be honest. Like, I am a big Frankie fan, like what he's done for racing and everything, but it's just getting a bit boring at this stage. I think, even though I think he was saying he's riding so well, he would feel it's a pity, but I think it's probably better to go out on top anyway. But yeah, I'd say he'll go for another few years, and he definitely will be back to England to ride in all the big meetings, I'd assume.
Ryan Moore's retirement, Joel, probably it'll be carried out over about 2 seconds, maybe even less, and that'll be it.
All right, well, let's go back to the racing that we know is definitely going ahead. So, or the racing from the weekend. So, City of Troy already, Johnny, you kind of touched on that performance, already being lauded as the next Franco. I mean, where do you kind of rate that performance in the Dewhurst? And are we getting a bit carried away with that comparison?
Yeah, like some of the chat afterwards, I'd be slightly wary of, because at the end of the day, he is a stallion prospect, and there's nothing to stop connections kind of saying that he's this, he's that. Now, if you've the likes of Michael Tabor, who's, I mean, the average age of the lads, as Aidan calls them, is to 79. I think the last I checked, could be even more now. So, like, at this stage of their life, I don't know if they're going to necessarily be hyping horses. But the one thing that I would say about City of Troy, and I was saying this on the show previously, he's out of Together Forever, and they in their good mind, they sent Together Forever to Warfront 3 times before they sent her to Justify, and then she had Bertinelli, who's a good horse, and now she's had this lad. So she actually had 3 Warfronts, and they all managed to win. And it's kind of mad that the Warfront experiment went on that long, but now they've gone to Justify. The interesting thing is, just in terms of stamina, like the on both sides of this horse's pedigree, he's plenty of stamina. Even though you could say, Justify was quite fast as well. I do love the way he finishes his races. What did he achieve in the Dewhurst? The horse that was in third was rated 98, Evan Shaddad, but Alan Abbey, who was coming in, seemed to be well touted, had lots of upside going into the race. You had all these other horses rated well into the hundreds, just well beaten, and you're kind of just waiting for that explosive kind of, I don't know if you call it explosive, but the way he finishes his race is so strong. And to be honest, I just think he's great for racing. He's very flashy. He's a great name, and they talk about him. I mean, Aidan was like, he was almost rehearsing from like a manual after the race, so he spoke about him. And I probably tend to agree he wasn't in love with the ground as well. So it's exciting times, great for racing. The Frankel comparisons, I'd be very, very surprised if he were as good as Frankel, but we shall see.
I mean, those that maybe look into the time figures, he was 1 second faster in his Dewhurst win compared to Frankel's. Not that there's probably much to read into that, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Emma, any thoughts as well, just to add on for City of Troy?
Yeah, I think like the comments from Aidan obviously were, I enjoy that, to be honest, the kind of building up comparing him to Frankel and stuff. But I think probably what would have taken me more was how Ryan Moore spoke about the horse. And Ryan's not someone you see getting too excited and being too chatty, but I think it's probably as talkative as I ever saw him on the way back in on City of Troy. He just had so much good things to say about him. I think he was saying that in his first run he had never struggled to pull a horse up, and this fella just kept going. And yeah, he's saying he's the best 2-year-old he's ever ridden, and hopefully he can progress on to next season. But yeah, he's one that's really, really exciting. Like, there was a lot against him on at the weekend. Like, the ground wouldn't have suited him really, but he's class. He just showed how good he was, and Aidan was saying he has jet engines or something like that. But hopefully he can keep going for next year now. Like Johnny said, like, just the way he finishes out his races would kind of fill you with hope that he'll, I don't know, did they mention the Triple Crown? But that's probably what's in the back of their minds. And Justify as a sire, like, you'd wonder, will they think about bringing him over here at some stage? Like, he's just doing so well. If this fella goes on to kind of what they're expecting him to do, it might be a conversation for them to have, I'd say.
Absolutely. And any other standout performances for you? Of course, the Shunter winning the Cesaro Rich caught my eye as well. Anything for you, Emma?
Yeah, the Shunter winning Cesaro, which was brilliant, I thought. It kind of just epitomises Emmett Mullins, I suppose, to do things differently. Like, he won the Cesaro, which was a 10-year-old chaser. But it was a brilliant race for the Irish, I suppose. Pied Piper ran a massive race as well. For Gordon, a lot of Irish in the first few home. I actually backed Lada Joy. I was getting a bit excited because she was backed into favourite just before the off, but I think the ground probably didn't play to her strengths too much. She travelled quite well, but just kind of faded off. My probably one to follow for the week though is from Punchestown. I think a horse called Solomon Lane for Martin Hassett. I think I put him up as a tip on the website during the week, and I was kind of counting my money coming to the last fence. I thought he was going to do it. He's just a horse who travels so strongly, jumps with real enthusiasm. He's an 8-year-old, I think, but he's got very little racing done really, and I think he probably just blew up jumping the last in Punchestown, so he should come on a lot. And yeah, I think he's very, very capable of winning off his current mark.
Yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on. Johnny, for you as well, any kind of eye catchers you're going to be keeping an eye on?
Yeah, Saturday was such a cool day racing, Joe. I went to the Ireland match, on the Ireland football match, and I had a bit of a jolly the night before, and I was really drowning my sorrows on Saturday, so I was kind of like stuck on the couch. But it was one of those days where you've proper national hunt racing coming back, and then you've like the Dewhurst and some good racing in Ireland as well. I have to say, like, obviously City of Troy took all the plaudits, but I thought Ancient Wisdom's performance prior to that, he beat Chief Little Rock very, very well, Dubawi horse, and I don't think like the season that Charlie Appleby's had, I don't think Aidan's necessarily going to have it his own way with the 2 others next season. But the horse that actually really struck me, I was saying to the lads in the WhatsApp group, I suppose we all have a WhatsApp group with some punting mates, and when I saw Frazzle was put in favourite for that maiden, considering the season Jim Bulger has had, this is a full brother to Poetic Flare. Dawn Approach has been he's been a hit and miss sire. He's gotten Mad Moon, Poetic Flare, and some other good horses, but he's a cheap enough sire. But obviously this horse was notable in the sense that he was a full brother to Poetic Flare, who would have been essentially the best exponent of the stallion. He'd run one back in the Curragh that was in March, and like, I really liked the way he finished the race at Naas. He looked all at sea, he looked beaten maybe a furlong and a half down. He ended up then coming up the near side, apparently sort of getting the better ground and winning really well. And Ger Flynn afterwards gave Jim doesn't seem to go racing that much anymore, which is understandable, but he might go racing a bit next year for this fella, because I think he'll be able to step up to, at least stakes level. But it was interesting, Ger Flynn was saying that he came up the near side and he started to really quicken on the sort of better ground. But interestingly, he said, and I hadn't really heard this, he said a lot of our horses just haven't been right this season. I think he might have mentioned they've been coughing, because Jim's Bulger strike rate this season is poor. Like, let's not get away from it. So this horse to come back from that absence that he'd had, the guts of 6-7 months, and to win the way he did in what wasn't a bad maiden. You're not going to get a bad maiden at Naas this time of year, or pretty much any time of year. I thought it was a very nice performance from him.
Definitely one to keep an eye on as well then. And also, obviously, the National Hunt season is upon us. We're going to look a little bit further ahead now. There are going to be changes to the Grand National this year. So, Emma, maybe just go over some of the biggest changes and what it kind of means for the race.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different changes, I suppose. I suppose the first one, the field is reduced from 40 to 34 runners. The first fence is being moved forward about 50 or 60 yards. The start time is being changed. I think it's going to be a bit earlier in the day to kind of... there's obviously some science behind it, that it's more likely to be a bit softer. The ground isn't drying out as the day goes on, I suppose. I don't think they're going to parade in front of the grandstand to try and keep the horses kind of as relaxed as possible. A few other things. Actually, one that kind of I found interesting. I don't know how they're going to quantify this. It was if a horse is kind of judged to make too many jumping errors in their races running up to the Grand National, that they won't be allowed run. What constitutes jumping errors? I'm not too sure whether it's going to be just falls or on seats, or if they clatter a fence in the race before, will they be allowed to run in the National? I don't know. That's kind of going to be a funny one, I think. Look, there's kind of been a lot of different opinions on it, I suppose, kind of put out during the week. And I can kind of see both sides of the argument. I think kind of the contrast between Ted and Ruby's opinions is probably the most obvious. Like, Ted is kind of saying that it's kind of the beginning of the end for the race. You're kind of appeasing these people who probably never be happy, and it's probably the start to the end. There are going to be more and more changes, and eventually it won't really be the Grand National anymore. But there's a lot of people then, like Ruby and a few others, who see the reason behind it. And look, I can definitely see the reason behind the changes. Everyone kind of wants it to be as safe as possible, and if the experts think that this is going to make a big difference, look, fair enough, and hopefully it will kind of help with the public perception of the race. But I do think that it's kind of just a start of a very slippery slope if you keep making more and more changes to the race. The likes of Animal Rising aren't going to care one bit about 34 runners or a first fence being moved 50 or 60 yards. They're going to keep protesting anyway. So it's kind of whether stick to your guns. I hope the changes do make a big difference, and you'd like to see 5 or 6 years now, no fatalities, and that will kind of prove that these changes were very effective. But I don't think you can ever really totally eliminate the risk in it. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it works. I hope it does work. The one change that I do really agree with is the no parade in front of the grandstands. I think that's just kind of sensible. It keeps the horses more relaxed. I suppose the first fence makes sense as well, but how effective it's really going to be, I hope it does work. But I do agree with Ted Walsh's comment. It is maybe a small bit worrying for the future of the race.
Yeah, I know, speaking to some jockeys as well, saying that the shorter approach to the first will be a big factor, so they're not going kind of full pelt at that first fence as well, should help a little bit. But Johnny, any thoughts from yourself as well on this?
Well, they should just stop racing altogether, if this is what they think. Like, why have a race? Because if it's like crossing the road or getting on a plane or getting in a car. If there's a risk of something happening, why bother doing it? Life's about taking risks. The Grand National is becoming, in my view, it's becoming the face of how British racing is really, really in possibly terminal decline, where somehow there's a stop to these animal rights like loopers. And I am massively in favour of animal rights, but if you're telling me about animal rights and you think racing is somehow high on your priority list, you've lost your mind here. Horses are better looked after than humans in many cases. These horses are exceptionally well looked after, and if a horse unseats a rider at the first of the Grand National, the first thing he'll do is try to jump the second, because that's what he wants to do. And you're telling me horses who have made jumping errors are to be closely scrutinised before being allowed to run? What sort of absolute nonsense is this? Like, and what does that even mean? I mean, so can a horse just develop jumping fences and improve jumping fences over time in his career, or does he have to be a complete natural from day one to get into a race with a pot of a million or whatever it is? And what's this other stuff like earlier starting time, whatever, maximum runners cut? Again, in fairness to Aintree, I will say one thing: the changes that they've made since it was a really, really tough race to jump, I don't think that was a bad thing. There were too many fatalities in the race, but at this point, basically, who was running the asylum here? Because we are getting to a situation where in Britain, where we're so afraid of the animal rights lobby that we're coming up with changes that, as Emma says, won't make a blind bit of difference. If you introduce these changes in Ireland, I think you'd be laughed out the gate. And like, British racing has real problems with prize money, field sizes, affordability checks, all these other things, and this is the best they can come up with.
Well, it was. They've also introduced some changes with regards to prize pools as well, and there's going to be fewer meetings. I don't know if you saw the BHA fixture list coming out, so I don't know if you had actually any comment on that as well, Johnny. But they're trying to make that effort, aren't they?
Yeah, and in fairness, like, I do have sympathy for them. Like, the whole funding model in Britain is really difficult, and it's like it's so a lot of the horses are being sold, the good horse. Well, it's very, very bad economics to own a horse in Britain, and like I look at what's happening in Ireland, and which is quite the opposite, where our fixture list is somehow growing, and every meeting we have now seems to be an effective industry day meeting. I'm here today at Gowran. There's another flat meeting at Gowran tomorrow, flat meeting at Navan. So three meetings in a row in October. There'll be nobody at, basically, and you're now getting to a situation in Ireland where a lot of trainers aren't going racing that much because there's just too much racing on. So if you're in a syndicate and you go racing and you've a reasonable horse and the trainer isn't even bothering to show up because he or she is too busy, and there's nobody at the meeting, you go to the bar afterwards, there's basically nobody there because it's another industry meeting. Are we going the other way in Ireland? I'd seriously worry about that. But in Britain, they've had to do something because field sizes are just so small now. You're habitually seeing these 2-runner races, 3-runner races, 4-runner races. But I feel the problems in British racing go so far now that they're kind of, changing the paint in a dodgy car, basically.
But yeah, I think, like Emma touched on as well, maybe it is just we have to look at the long-term game as well. So, I mean, after a couple of years, let's see how well these changes are actually going to affect the industry. Are the reduced number of fixtures going to help in England, or is it, proved to be not the case? We will see, I guess. We'll have to wait and see. But Emma, as well, I want to bring you in on this weekend's racing as well. So Champions Day, any kind of early pointers which way you're looking?
I actually absolutely can't wait for Champions Day now. I'm heading over on Friday evening. It's going to be my first time in Ascot, so really looking forward to it. And kind of just looking at the card, it's really, really exciting. It's probably one of the best days of flat racing of the whole year. Like the long distance cup there is the first race. I think you've Kyprios kind of coming back after. Look, he ran well in the Ledger first time out, but Trushan will give him a real test, I think. Like the Champions Stakes, you've got Mostadaf. I think there's a French horse, Horizon Door is the favourite at the moment. King of Steel might give Frankie a big winner. But I think the QE2 is definitely a race of the day. Paddington, Tahira, Nashwa. I'm not sure is Inspirel confirmed to be going for it, but there was talk that she might. So that's going to be a massive race for me. I'm a big Paddington fan, so I'm hoping he can do it. The last day maybe he was just a little bit flat, but he's just had a small break now after maybe what was quite a hard season for him. But it's a really, really exciting day. Paddington probably will be my highlight, I hope, anyway. But big fan of Tahira as well, so I wouldn't be overly disappointed if she was to overturn him, but that's definitely a race of the day for me.
And Johnny, for you, which storylines are you looking forward to Champions Day?
Yeah, I suppose like when you think of Aidan, he's come up with some good phrases this year. I remember he said at Paddington that they stretched the elastic too far the last year, so they have given him that break now. 59 days it'll be since I suppose you could say his costly defeat, but I suppose a defeat that wasn't necessarily unexpected at York in the sense that he's had a tough time. But like I do think Tahira, I've been kind of waiting for her to take on the boys. Obviously, it was so disappointing that maybe not disappointing, but I thought the matron kind of cut up a bit at Leopardstown. I thought she nearly should have been in the champion stakes. And then I just think it's great to see Kyprios back as well. Like his run at the Curragh was perfectly satisfactory. I think that'll kind of put him bang there. And these race days are just class. Like they kind of they end the season in a nice way. I'm sure Kinross backers will be hoping to get their money back as well. It just has so much going for it. And yeah, I can't wait. And I guess we're bringing down the curtain soon, the flat season with the Breeders' Cup and all that, but this is a super meet at Ascot. Hopefully the ground isn't too bad as well. It doesn't turn into a mud bath. I know we've a good bit of rain expected in Ireland this week, and it's soft at the moment in Ascot, but yeah, it's going to be a class meet.
Absolutely. And finally, as well, I did see, as reported by the Racing Post, the punter in New Zealand won $10 million for predicting all 12 or the finishing order of the Everest. So one final piece of conversation for you. Emma, if you won that, which is the equivalent of about €5.5 million, what would you do?
I don't think I'd ever be that lucky now, but I definitely go buy some race horses, I think. Have a bit of fun with it. It wouldn't be too long disappearing now, I'd say. But a few nice point-to-point horses now. Have a go at Cheltenham, maybe.
And yourself, Johnny?
Yeah, I'd waste it on horses as well, to be honest. Maybe I'd go in, maybe Emma and I could become like partners in wasting money on race horses. But I think to make these kind of, mad Everest type bets, they have to make them more of a thing. I think they're great for publicity and racing here. And if you could get a proper sort of pool where people start betting into this on a Saturday again, and that it's a really live thing. And I know that we've had the Super 6 and all that. But like this, the publicity of this is far better for racing than any stuff about, removing the 2 or 3 runners from the Grand National field.
Absolutely. I think that was a nice way to kind of sum up today's episode. Obviously, comment below with your thoughts on the racing that we've discussed and also your predictions for the future. What would you do if you won that big jackpot as well? Also, thanks to Novibet for sponsoring today's episode and for Emma and Johnny's views. As always, subscribe to the channel for more. There's plenty to come here on Irish Racing. But for now, thanks for watching and we'll see you again very soon.